Hello, my dear friends. My name is Margaret, and I'm 71 years old. I know what you're thinking when you see that title. You're thinking I'm going to tell you some scandalous story, some wild romance that went wrong. But the truth is so much more complicated, so much more painful, and so much more important than that. I'm here today because I made a choice 3 years ago that changed everything, and I need to share what I learned. Not to judge anyone, not to tell you what to do with your life, but to give you the truth that no one gave me when I needed it most. The truth about what happens when you fall in love with someone 15 years younger after 60. I was 68 when I met Daniel. I'd been widowed for 5 years. My husband Thomas and I had 42 beautiful years together before cancer took him from us. Those first years after his death were the darkest of my life. I didn't think I'd ever feel anything again except this hollow, echoing loneliness that seemed to fill every room. My children were grown, living their own lives across the country. My grandchildren were busy with school and activities. And me, I was just existing, going through the motions, waiting for my own time to come. Then one Tuesday afternoon at the community center where I volunteer, everything changed. I was organizing books in the library when this man walked in, Daniel. He was 53, tall, with silver threading through his dark hair, laugh lines around his eyes. He'd just moved to town and was looking for volunteer opportunities. We started talking about books, then life, then everything. He made me laugh for the first time in 5 years. Really laugh, the kind that makes your stomach hurt and tears run down your face. Looking back now, I can see all the warning signs I missed in those early days. The way other volunteers would look at us with raised eyebrows. The way conversations would pause when we walked into a room together. My friends from my grief support group were hesitant, carefully choosing their words when I told them about him. But I was so intoxicated by feeling desired again that I brushed off everyone's concerns as jealousy or closed-mindedness. Now I need you to understand something. I never set out to date someone younger. The 15-year age gap wasn't something I was looking for or even wanted. But Daniel pursued me. He called me beautiful. He said I was fascinating. He wanted to spend every free moment with me. And after 5 years of feeling invisible, of feeling like my life was over, someone saw me, someone wanted me. Can you imagine how intoxicating that feeling was? We started dating 3 months after we met. My daughter Jennifer was the first person I told. I'll never forget the look on her face when I said he was 53. It wasn't judgment exactly, more like concern mixed with confusion. She said, "Mom, are you sure about this?" I told her I was happy, that Daniel made me feel alive again. She smiled, but I could see the worry behind her eyes. I thought she was being overprotective. I thought she didn't want me to move on from her father. I was wrong about what she was worried about. The first year was magical. Daniel and I traveled together. We went to Italy, something I'd always dreamed of, but Thomas never wanted to do. We hiked trails, went to concerts, tried new restaurants. He introduced me to technology I'd been avoiding. We FaceTimed with my grandchildren. He taught me how to use social media. I felt young again, not just in spirit, but in the way I moved through the world. I started caring about my appearance again, wearing colors instead of just beige and gray, getting my hair styled instead of just trimmed. But then small things started to appear, little cracks in the foundation. Daniel wanted to go out dancing until midnight when I needed to be home by 10. He wanted to take adventure trips, zip lining and whitewater rafting when my knees couldn't handle that kind of activity anymore. He'd make jokes about my age, little comments about how I moved slower or needed reading glasses or didn't understand some cultural reference. He'd laugh and say he was just teasing, and I'd laugh too, but each comment felt like a small cut. The second year, things shifted. Daniel started talking about his future, about things he wanted to do in his 50s and 60s. He talked about eventually retiring at 65, about traveling the world for months at a time, about maybe getting a motorcycle, and I realized with this sinking feeling in my stomach that he was planning a future I wouldn't fully be part of. When he'd be 65 and just retiring, I'd be 80. When he'd be 70 and still active, I'd be 85. The math was unavoidable, cruel, and absolutely clear. Then my health started to decline. Nothing major at first. My arthritis got worse. I developed high blood pressure. I needed cataract surgery. These are normal things for someone in their late 60s, early 70s. But for Daniel, each health issue became a burden. He'd sigh when I said I couldn't do something physical. He'd seem frustrated when I needed to schedule doctor appointments. He never said it outright, but I could feel it. I was becoming the older woman, not the vibrant partner he'd fallen for. I remember one particular incident that crystallized everything. We'd planned a weekend hiking trip to the mountains. I'd been looking forward to it, but the week before I had a flare-up of sciatica. The pain was excruciating. I could barely walk from the bedroom to the kitchen, let alone hike mountain trails. When I told Daniel we'd have to postpone, he didn't say much. He just said, "Okay, it's fine." But his face said everything his words didn't. Disappointment, resignation, a kind of weary acceptance that this was going to be our life now. He went on the trip anyway, alone, posting photos from mountain peaks I couldn't climb. Each photo felt like a reminder of what I couldn't give him anymore. The breaking point came last spring. We were invited to his college friend's wedding. The bride and groom were in their early 50s. At the reception, I watched Daniel laughing and dancing with people his age. I watched women his age flirt with him, women who could dance for hours, who didn't need to sit down every 20 minutes, who didn't talk about their grandchildren or their medication schedules, and I saw him looking at them with this expression I'd never seen before. It was possibility. It was recognition. It was the look of someone realizing what they'd given up. That night in our hotel room, I asked him directly, "Do you wish I was younger?" He was quiet for a long time, too long. Then he said something I'll never forget. He said, "I love you, Margaret, but sometimes I look ahead and I see myself taking care of you instead of being with you. And that scares me. I'm not ready to be someone's caretaker. I don't know if I'll ever be ready for that." I broke up with him the next day, not because I was angry, but because I suddenly saw our relationship with painful clarity. Daniel didn't want to grow old with me. He wanted to stay in this suspended place where I was vibrant and energetic and could keep up with him. But aging doesn't work that way. Every year that passed, the gap between us would become more pronounced, not just in age, but in ability, in energy, in the realities of our bodies and what they could do. Now, here's where I need to be brutally honest with all of you watching this. This isn't about judging age gap relationships. Some of them work beautifully. But after 60, the mathematics of aging become impossible to ignore. A 15-year age gap in your 30s or 40s is very different from a 15-year gap in your 60s and 70s. When you're 68 dating someone 53, you're not just in different life stages, you're in different phases of aging. Think about it practically. At 71, I'm dealing with normal age-related changes. I tire more easily. My body aches in ways it didn't 5 years ago. I'm thinking about downsizing, about making sure my affairs are in order, about legacy and what I leave behind. These aren't morbid thoughts. They're realistic ones, but someone in their mid-50s, they're still in their peak earning years. They're still planning for retirement decades away. They're still thinking about all the things they're going to do, not the things they can't do anymore. Here's what no one tells you about dating a younger man after 60. You become acutely aware of your age in ways you never were before. Every wrinkle feels like a betrayal. Every time you're tired, you wonder if he's disappointed. Every health issue becomes evidence that you're not enough. You start performing youth, trying to keep up, pushing yourself beyond what's comfortable or even healthy, all to prove you're still worthy of his attention. And the cruel irony, while you're exhausting yourself trying to seem younger, he gets to just be himself. He gets to age naturally while you're fighting against time with every fiber of your being. The relationship becomes fundamentally unequal, not because he's a bad person, but because the power dynamics of age are real and they're brutal. My daughter Jennifer came to visit 3 months after Daniel and I broke up. We were sitting on my porch drinking tea when she said something profound. She said, "Mom, I wasn't worried about you replacing Dad. I was worried about you disappearing. When you were with Daniel, you stopped being yourself. You were always trying to be someone younger, someone different. I just wanted my mom back." She was right. I had disappeared. I'd sacrificed my own authentic experience of being 70 years old for the performance of being younger. I'd given up quiet evenings with books for clubs I didn't enjoy. I'd pushed my body beyond its limits for hikes I didn't want to take. I'd minimized my own wisdom and experience to seem more appealing, more fun, more young. Here's what I want every woman over 60 to understand. Your age is not something to apologize for. Your body's changes are not something to hide. Your pace, your preferences, your priorities at this stage of life are valid and valuable. When you date someone significantly younger, especially after 60, you risk spending all your energy trying to meet them where they are instead of being where you are. Now, am I saying age gap relationships never work? No. Am I saying you should only date people exactly your age? Of course not. But I am saying you need to be realistic about what you're signing up for. Ask yourself these questions. Can this person meet you where you are right now, at your actual age, with your actual energy levels and physical abilities? Can they see you as you are, not as they want you to be? Can they accept that you might need care before they do? Are they prepared for the reality that your timeline is different from theirs? And here's the hardest question of all. Are you dating them because you genuinely connect, or are you dating them because they make you feel young again? Because I'll tell you, that feeling is a drug. It's addictive and wonderful, and it makes you feel like you've found the fountain of youth. But it's not sustainable. Eventually, reality sets in. Your body reminds you of your real age. Your needs become undeniable. And if the relationship is built on the fantasy of youth rather than the reality of who you are, it will crumble. 6 months after Daniel and I broke up, I ran into him at the grocery store. He was with someone new, a woman who looked to be in her late 40s or early 50s. They were laughing, holding hands, filling their cart with energy drinks and ingredients for some elaborate meal. He saw me and looked guilty, but I just smiled. I wasn't angry. I was relieved I wasn't trying to be her, relieved I wasn't exhausting myself to keep up. Relieved I could be exactly who I am, a 71-year-old woman with a rich, full life that looks exactly like it should at this age. Here's what I've learned in the years since. Being 71 is actually wonderful when you stop fighting it. I've reconnected with friends my own age. We have lunch dates where we talk about our grandchildren and our health, and yes, sometimes we complain about our aches and pains, and it feels good. It feels authentic. I've joined a book club where everyone is between 65 and 75. We read at our own pace. We meet in the afternoon, not the evening. We understand each other's references and share similar life experiences. There's something profound about being in community with people who understand your stage of life without explanation. When I mention feeling tired by 8 p.m., no one looks at me like I'm defective. When I talk about my concerns about aging, about maintaining independence, about what the next decade might look like, I'm met with understanding nods instead of uncomfortable silences. We laugh about the same things. We worry about the same things. We celebrate the same victories, like remembering where we put our keys or successfully navigating a new phone app. I've also started taking watercolor classes at the senior center, something I've always wanted to do but never made time for. The instructor is 76, and she moves slowly, takes breaks, and nobody minds. We paint at our own pace. There's no competition, no pressure to keep up with anyone else. It's peaceful in a way my relationship with Daniel never was. There's no performance required, just presence. I've also started dating again, but this time I'm only interested in men close to my own age. And you know what I've discovered? There are wonderful, vibrant, interesting men in their late 60s and 70s, men who understand what this stage of life is about. Men who don't need me to perform youth because they're not performing it themselves. I went on a date last month with a man named Robert. He's 73. We met for coffee at 3 in the afternoon. We talked for 2 hours about our children, our late spouses, our favorite books, what we're grateful for at this stage of life. When we parted, he said he'd like to see me again, maybe for an early dinner next time. Early dinner. Those 2 words felt like a gift because they meant he understood. He lives in the same reality I do. We've been on 4 dates now, nothing rushed, nothing pressured. He picks me up at 5:30 for dinner. We're home by 8:30. He doesn't make jokes about my age or his. He doesn't try to prove he's still young by suggesting activities that would be uncomfortable for either of us. Last week, he invited me to a matinee showing of a classic film. A matinee. Not a late-night showing. Not trying to prove we can still hang with the young crowd. A mature, sensible matinee. What strikes me most about Robert is how comfortable I feel. I don't suck in my stomach or worry about every wrinkle. I don't pretend to have energy I don't have. When my knee bothered me after we walked through the botanical gardens, I said so, and he immediately suggested we sit and rest. No sighing, no impatience, no disappointment, just understanding. Because his knee bothers him sometimes too. We're in this together, at the same stage, facing the same realities. I want to be very clear about something. This isn't about settling. This isn't about giving up on passion or excitement or connection. This is about being realistic about where you are in life and finding someone who can meet you there authentically. There's something incredibly freeing about being with someone who sees your age not as something to overlook or work around, but as simply who you are. Someone who's walking the same path at roughly the same pace. With Daniel, I was always running, always trying to catch up, always exhausting myself to bridge the gap. With someone my own age, I can walk, I can stroll, I can stop and rest when I need to without feeling guilty. That's not settling, that's peace. My granddaughter asked me recently if I regretted my relationship with Daniel. I thought about it carefully before answering. I told her I didn't regret it, but I learned from it. I learned that sometimes feeling young and being happy are two different things. I learned that the right relationship doesn't require you to be anyone other than exactly who you are. I learned that my age is not a limitation, it's a truth, and the right person will embrace that truth rather than asking me to perform around it. If you're a woman over 60 considering dating a younger man, I want you to think about these things. First, examine your motivations honestly. Are you attracted to him specifically or to how he makes you feel about yourself? Second, look at how he talks about your age. Does he celebrate your wisdom or make jokes about it? Third, think about practical realities. What happens when your health declines? Is he prepared for that? Fourth, and this is crucial, are you willing to sacrifice being authentically yourself at this age for the relationship? Because that's what it often costs. You end up performing youth, hiding limitations, pushing beyond comfortable boundaries, all to maintain the illusion that age doesn't matter. But age does matter, not in a negative way, but in a factual way. Our bodies are different at 70 than at 55. Our needs are different, our pace is different, and there's no shame in that. I know why the fantasy is appealing. After 60, especially if you've lost a spouse, the world can make you feel invisible. Suddenly, a younger man sees you, wants you. It feels like validation, and you are desirable, but you don't need someone younger to prove it. Here's the brutal truth that Tidal promised. Dating a younger man after 60 is exhausting, not because he's younger, but because you're not. And trying to bridge that gap takes everything you have. It takes your energy, your authenticity, your peace, your sense of self. Is the relationship worth that cost? For some people, maybe yes, but for me, the answer is no. The cost is too high. I'm not here to judge anyone's choices. I'm not here to say that age gap relationships are wrong or that they can't work. I'm here to share my experience and what it taught me. I'm here to say that at 71, I finally understand that the right relationship enhances who you are, not who you pretend to be. The right person celebrates your age, your wisdom, your experience, your pace. They don't ask you to be younger. They don't make you feel insufficient for being exactly your age. If I could go back and talk to my 68-year-old self, the woman who was so flattered by Daniel's attention, I'd say this: you are enough exactly as you are. Your age is not something to overcome. Your experience is not something to minimize. Your pace is not something to apologize for. The right person will see your 70 years not as a limitation, but as a testament to survival, to wisdom, to resilience, to a life fully lived. I'm 71 years old. I move slower than I did at 50. I need more rest. I prefer quiet evenings to loud clubs. I talk about my grandchildren probably too much. I have medications I take every morning. My body bears the evidence of 7 decades of life. And you know what? I'm done apologizing for any of it. I'm done performing youth for anyone. I'm done exhausting myself to prove I'm still worthy of attention and love. If you're over 60 and considering dating a younger man, ask yourself this one critical question. Can I be completely, authentically myself at my actual age in this relationship? Not the young version, not the energetic fantasy version, but the real tired sometimes, achy sometimes, slower than I used to be version. That's who you are, and that person deserves to be loved exactly as she is. Don't trade your authenticity for the illusion of youth. Don't sacrifice your peace for the performance of keeping up. You've earned the right to be exactly who you are, at exactly the age you are, with someone who celebrates that rather than asks you to hide it. Period.